What is up, Twins fans? It's Tom here. We're going to talk about the weekend news and performances from the Minnesota Twins minor league system, as well as take a look back at the top performers in April. I want to start out with some really good news here. Do-Young Park of MLB.com reports that Royce Lewis is playing. Royce Lewis is playing basically extended spring training, but that is huge. I'm sure he's still miles away. But this is a great sign that his recovery is going well. Again, he reports that head athletic trainer Nick Paparesta said they're looking to get him into a full rehab assignment sometime this month in May. So they're not going to push this guy. They're not going to rush him back. Obviously, back-to-back ACL knee injuries. They're going to be very careful with Royce, but a complete X factor when you're trying to analyze what the Twins might look like, months from now. Royce Lewis is going to be factoring into that somehow, more than likely. So pretty exciting there. Going to start off with some good news. So that was one of them. Another one, Connor Prielipp. It was pretty sketchy. This is a guy with a checkered injury history. Hasn't thrown a ton overall coming out of Alabama. There was concerns about his arm once again, and it was easy to kind of wonder if the worst was going on. It's always easy with pitchers, but good news. Prielipp, this is from Jeff Johnson, a reporter out of Cedar Rapids. The exam that he had turned out well. No damage to that elbow or arm. So he's kind of ramping back up, and we should see him eventually. Also, Manuel Rodriguez we should be seeing sometime pretty soon here as well. So moving on, again, didn't have the system recaps coming as I usually would. So we'll just take a look at the top performers out through the system the last few days. On Friday, Simeon Woods Richardson took a no-hitter deep into his outing for the Saints. Ended up going 7 innings, only 4 strikeouts, so wasn't missing a ton of bats, but very efficient, very effective outing for Simeon Woods Richardson. On Saturday, Junior Severino, the third baseman for Wichita, went 4 for 6 with a homer, 2 runs and 4 runs batted in. This guy's been pretty hot to start the season. Really fun player. Nice, intriguing third base prospect in Junior Severino. If you remember, this is the guy who his contract got voided with the Braves, and the Twins signed him, I think, for a couple $1 million once he became a free agent once again. And then yesterday, Sunday, C.J. Culpepper for Fort Myers. He had a nice outing, 5 innings pitched, no runs, 7 strikeouts, and no walks as well. He's been a guy that's pitched pretty well in the early going here. Let's take a look at the year-to-date numbers. So who's been hot, who's kind of leading this system. And this is the top 10 hitters in terms of OPS, ranked by OPS out of the qualified hitters. That was a sample of 29 hitters. That's basically the guys who are playing virtually every day down in the system. As you see here, we see some familiar names. We see Severino, we just discussed there, really playing well. Matt Wallner's a guy we've seen with the Twins. Mark Contreras we saw with the Twins. Julian, of course, we saw with the Twins. Everybody knows Brooks Lee. But some pop-up prospects on this list, and that's encouraging to see. Andrew Cossetti, a guy who was a Twins draft pick from last year, I believe the 11th round pick, leading an average on-base percentage and slugging in Fort Myers. So the Florida State League, that's a difficult place to hit. He is 23 years old, so he's a bit old for the level, but he's not out of place there. As a recent draftee out of college, that's kind of where you'd expect him to be. He's a catcher as well, and you might think, oh boy, move this guy up. What's he got to prove here? Well, we see Noah Cardenas, a few spots down here. I believe that's the 8th spot for Cedar Rapids. He's their catcher, so he's a guy that's really lighting it up, and he's still only 23 years old for Cedar Rapids. Not sure if maybe both those guys might be moving up before too long. Who knows? Cardenas spent all last year with Fort Myers. So it's not like he's been in Cedar Rapids long, but great to see some catchers hitting in this system. Always great to see that. Another guy I want to mention, another recent draftee, is Jorel Ortega is doing really well. He kind of seems to be popping up in the box scores I'm looking through every night for that team. Of course, there are really no highlights for them. Ben Ross is a guy that we've got to take a look at. a little bit with Cedar Rapids, and he's looking like he might be a guy to track here. So some names that I think are establishing themselves a little bit more intriguing than maybe we came into the year with, along with some of the guys that we were looking for, your Wallners, Edouard Juliens. Those are guys we were pretty excited about, and continue to be. Brooks Lee, of course, in that sample as well. Moving on to the pitching side, and this is kind of, I do think there is a little bit less luster on the hitting side than maybe like if we compare this to even your average year since I've been doing this, or definitely last year. But on the pitching side is where it really drives home. This is the top guys in order of ERA. I know that's not the best way to do it, but I thought that was just kind of the easiest way to throw this together. The top 10 guys in terms of ERA, and some guys who are pitching well and some guys who are not pitching all that great. But the struggle here, and it's early. It's early, but I cut this off at minimum of 10 innings pitched, and that gives us 37 pitchers. There are only 7 qualified starters in this Twin Systems. There's only 4 starting pitchers who have 20 or more innings. Aaron Sanchez, who we see here, Blaine Enlow, Randy Dobnak, and Zebby Matthews, who is with Fort Myers. So, in my opinion, not a ton to get excited about on the pitching side. Not a lot of guys. This is an much older system, too. You see Orlando Rodriguez, 27 years old, pitching in Cedar Rapids. See Michael Boyle, 29 years old, pitching in Wichita. I don't even want to take jabs at those guys because at least they're pitching well in some regards. There are some guys, and I don't want to throw them under the bus, but there are some guys who are both old for their level by quite a bit and pitching poorly in this system right now. And of course, as to be expected, quite a few trades really within the last couple of years. So, that's going to come back around eventually. You're not always going to continue to get these. It seemed like last year so many of their picks kind of popped up. And, of course, a lot of those guys were the guys they traded. That's not going to happen every year. That's not going to happen right away. Maybe there are some guys that are going to show themselves throughout the season. But in the early going here, there's just not a ton for me to get excited about, at least. Great to see Reggie Grace, though, out there doing well. You see he leads the system of both ERA and WHIP in the early going here. A guy who was their 10th round pick all the way back in 2018, Reggie Grace. So nice to see him getting it together. Ben Etheridge is another guy that kind of is piquing my interest, pitching pretty well there for Fort Myers. He was the Twins' 15th round pick this past year's draft out of Southern Miss. So it's not like there aren't guys that are kind of coming out and showing themselves, but so many of the top guys are more of like your Simeon Woods Richardson types, Bailey Ober, who we have on here, Louis Varland, who I should mention in K- walk percentage, that column. Louis Varland leads the system in this sample with a 33.9 K- walk percentage. So those guys, I'm excited about those guys, but those guys, I feel like they're a little bit more like kind of keeping warm in AAA. They're basically major leaguers. There's not established major leaguers other than maybe Bailey Ober, but they're more major league depth guys. It's not really they're prospects, but it's hard for me to explain. But they're not kind of guys that we're watching them to see how they develop. We've kind of learned what we can learn to some degree about those guys in the minor leagues. I guess that's the best way that I would put it. They still have some developing to do. It's not going to hurt them to be in the minor leagues. But really the place we want to see them in terms of growth, in terms of kind of learning where they're at, is in the big leagues. And, of course, Ober's back in the big leagues. Varland's going to be back up there. We've already seen him back up there this year. So, but a lot of the other sample is guys who aren't really completely pushing it. I mentioned Blaine Enlow as one of the guys with 20-plus innings pitched. He is a guy that's kind of very much back on my radar. I want to mention the asterisk next to Cody Thunderberg is because he has moved up to St. Paul. So most of his stats so far have been with Wichita, but he's up with the Saints. So nice to see him move up. But pretty hard for me to get excited about the pitching as a whole down in the minors. And we don't really focus on wins and losses when we talk about the minor leagues, but I like to see the teams winning. I think it's good. I think it's also good when they reach the playoffs, get a few extra games in kind of a different environment. You see the Saints are 5 games over 500, but trailing in their division, and then the rest of, the Double-A team and the High-A team are below 500, and the Mighty Muscles are 12-9. But everybody's trailing in their divisions right now. There's really no standout team. It's kind of a middling system. I'm sure Wichita is a little down because they've been given some pretty incredible teams so far in their couple of years of being affiliated with the Twins. Hopefully they turn things around and kind of keep that relationship going positive. But just a quick snapshot of the standings in case you were wondering, and wanted to save the buzzkill for last. But I got to be honest. I shared this on Twitter the other day that I'm feeling kind of blah about kind of this system in terms of keeping up to it on a day-to-day basis. And that is not what you want to hear from me, especially. A lot of the guys that I'm most excited about seeing are hurt. Of course, we mentioned Royce and Prielipp, and apparently Emmanuel Rodriguez should be back pretty soon. So that'll definitely help turn the tide. But there's some other guys out still that are kind of a bummer. And then just there haven't been the guys emerging. And then again, the guys like your Varlins, your Woods Richardsons, guys like that. It's more of I'm more curious to see what they do at the major league level than whether they have a great outing or a poor outing. I'm not really going to overreact either way in the minors at this point. Cole Sands, kind of Brent Hedrick now. So many of these guys that have cycled through that long relief role for the Twins are in that spot. So just being honest, I think this is, again, the most blah I've kind of felt about trying to track this system on a day-to-day basis. Hopefully in May, fingers crossed, weather's starting to warm up in a lot of these places where it's been kind of colder. Maybe we see some guys turning the corner, especially on that pitching side. Maybe we see some pitching developments, some guys getting healthy, some guys breaking out. So definitely hope for the future, but that's where my vibe is at right now. Thank you so much to all of the members for sponsoring this channel. I apologize, there will not be a Member Monday video. That's kind of what had to get kicked in order to catch up here from those days missed. The end of the month is just becoming brutal for me. So this might kind of be a similar story at the end of months. We kind of just catch up and do a month in review. Anyway, here are all the premium members listed here. Thank you so much to everybody for watching this video. We'll talk again soon.